Hello and
Hello.
welcome to yet another Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast. Today we're going to be talking a bit of golf, a little bit of a different angle. I've got Ricky Willison over there, a golf pro at Ealing Golf Club. Before we get over to Ricky, I will run the usuals. If you could like, rate and review the podcast on your podcast provider, if you scroll down below the list of episodes available, you will be able to offer us a 5-star review and also submit a written review. That would be great. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, we have a Buy Me a Coffee set up. It just allows you to make a small financial donation if you so wish. The content will always be free, but if you want to support the podcast, that would be great. That's enough of the boring stuff. Ricky Willison, golf pro at Ealing Golf Club. Good evening. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, Ricky?
Good evening. Yeah, no, I'm doing fine. Thank you. Pleasure. Absolutely pleasure. I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. So I'm looking forward to this immensely.
That's going to be good then. Save me on the talking. I sort of approached you out of the blue, Ricky. I've followed your Twitter account for a few years. It's how I source a lot of guests on this podcast. And I thought with my profession sort of in greenkeeping, so we've obviously got the golf crossover there. And I thought it might be interesting to pick the brains of a golf pro, a man who lives the day-to-day on a golf course as I do and my colleagues do. And just sort of talk a little bit about work relationships and hopefully the benefits of positive ones, but we may go over a few issues that we may have both encountered over the years. We'll see. But before we get into that, Ricky, can you just give us a little bit of a introduction, talk the hind legs off us about yourself for a bit, if you like?
Well, it won't take long, that bit. But no, I've basically been in golf for, a number of years now. I got into it normal way, started at a driving range, got into a club. Funny enough, one of the first clubs I got into was Ealing. Always liked the members down there, always liked the course. It was a very forward-thinking course. And, I gradually got better and better every year, won a few locals, then won a few nationals, ended up playing for England. Always an aim for me was to play Walker Cup or for Britain. Never knew whether you would get it, but I did get that in the end. So played Eisenhower and Walker Cup. And then I got to the stage where, you don't know what to do. I was a printer by trade. In those days, amateur golf was definitely amateur golf.
Yeah.
And I was a printer by trade. And I was at a stage where my father had a small printing business and he, I was starting to get more and more time off playing golf. So he sort of gave me an ultimatum and sort of said, what are you going to do? You're going to turn pro or start with the business. And I was 32, so it was I decided to go pro. It was quite an old, I was fairly old at the time to turn pro, but so best part of 30 years now I've been a pro. There was a number of reasons why I did it. I mean, the old school of amateur golf in those days, if you got into a team, it was much harder to get out of a team once you got in it. But by God, it was hard to get in it. And the Walker Cup was very much in those days selected on, if the 10 best players were all Scottish, they would never have picked 10 best players from Scotland. They had to throw in a few English or Welsh or, Ireland. It's a bit political. And, that's really why I ended up. I didn't like that sort of way. I thought you should always be selected on merit. But I loved it. I absolutely loved playing for my country, loved playing for, for Britain. And I got my card. I didn't get a great card on the European Tour. I've won a couple of Challenge Tour events. And I had a second, a third, a fifth, a sixth, and a couple of other top tens on the main tour. So didn't quite get that win. I was probably about 70th on the Ryder Cup list, so I was a good long way away from that. But no, I really enjoyed it. But then kids came along at 40. I was struggling with my game, and in the end, I decided to call it a day. And I actually where I think I get into golf in terms of the greenkeeping side is I went and worked for a friend of mine who we designed golf courses. So as amongst other things, I came off tour and then went straight into golf course design as a consultant stroke. I was useless at school. I could draw and I did technical drawing, but every other subject I usually skived apart from sport. And so therefore, it was a fit, and I didn't know anything about greenkeeping or anything like that. But as I say, I played golf for top level for a while, and so therefore this friend of mine, brought me into his company and said, look, you know golf, and then that's really how I started on the other side, as it were.
Right.
But you never knew that.
No, lofty, a very lofty CV. Congratulations to you,
No,
sir.
I meant the golf course side of it. Yeah, no, I loved it. It was great fun.
So let's, if I, in your current guise, shall we say, now that you're not on tour, and I don't think you're going to be making Mr. Stenson's Ryder Cup.
No.
If I said to you, the relationship between yourself as the golf pro and the head greenkeeper, or the greenkeepers, what springs to mind when how do you see that relationship?
Well, obviously with mine, I think it's a very good relationship. I mean, if you're talking about other clubs, I can see how difficult it can be. That's not every club, but I think certainly my background of having worked in the industry, albeit not preparing conditions, but other areas, designing a bunker or a green or whatever it might be, a hole or a course. I think that obviously helps. And so what happened with me is that I went through a divorce and the kids, and so I was traveling a lot doing golf course design, especially in Ireland, and then the job at Ealing came up, and it was just the right time. I'd had my 5-6 years away from golf. I missed it, and I wanted to do that. And I always fancied playing again. I just needed time away from it. And as a consequence, I became the pro at Ealing, or director of golf. And it was a very difficult relationship, if I must say, with the greenkeeper at the time, because the greenkeeper at the time wasn't producing the condition of a course that certainly I'd expected. Now, obviously, there is circumstances. For instance, committees are a nightmare most of the time, because you can never get a decision out of committee. It will go, they're made up of all different standards, all different job titles, and they've all got a point to prove most of the time. So, certainly from where I was coming from, I just finished working on a project quite close to me, and we were using a young guy who had been a greenkeeper at Ealing, an assistant greenkeeper, and he was growing it in because it started from scratch. And we'd got an agronomist coming over from Ireland once a month or once every 2 months, and because our course was so bad, the first thing I did as the golf pro was sat in the committee with the greenkeeper and said, look, do you need help? Because we're growing a course just down the road and it's frigging immaculate, and we're struggling. And we always had a reputation of being a very ordinary course but in good condition. And so we got the agronomist to help the greenkeeper, but the greenkeeper at the time wasn't really following what the agronomist was saying, and I never understood that. I always felt that there was a lot of pride in greenkeeping, rightly so, but I think it's miles better now. But at the time, I didn't think that they didn't like other people coming in and telling them how to do their golf course, and whereas pros would always go to other pros, working on your swing or what are you selling, and everyone seems to be so much more accommodating, as it were. With greenkeeping, it was a little bit different at that time, and in the end, it came to, I said, look, if you follow the agronomist and the course is still rubbish, he goes. But if you don't follow him and the course is rubbish, it's very hard to defend that. It's very hard. And what happened then is, he left. I hated the fact that, he left, but he didn't. I could tell even before I got there, he wasn't enjoying it. He wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't. It was a difficult. It was a difficult club to be at the time, and so, the guy who came in, you probably would know because it's Greg Evans, and
yeah,
Greg is Mummite in the greenkeeping fraternity, and I know that. And Greg was a junior at Ealing, and basically he came in, and the agronomist at the time said, who did you appoint? We said Greg Evans, and he said, Rick, you won't need me again. You won't need me. And we never, 15 years later, I've never needed him again.
Yeah. Well, Greg, yeah, you suggest he's Marmite. Well, not for me to say. He certainly, I think the business he has built up would suggest that he is very good at what he does. And yeah, I think probably when I got into greenkeeping 20 odd years ago, my first golf course, local golf club, sort of down at Deal, had the RNA sort of would come in with the agronomist every now and again. Not regularly, but I remember there was a small amount of pushback back then because, I think you probably had the attitude that, if the club might not sort of trust me. They expect me to do this job, and then they're bringing people in. But that wasn't necessarily the case because it was with regards to sort of the RNA when the sort of Deal would regularly host the pre-qualifying or the final qualifying for the Open at St George's every time it turned up. And I think maybe Greg himself is his approach now, where he is obviously an agronomist as such, visiting many golf clubs. And I think the greenkeepers who are becoming successful are accepting people like Greg's help, embracing it. And as you've just said, it doesn't necessarily take a weight off their shoulders, but maybe would allow them to focus some efforts elsewhere. They've got people like Greg offering wonderful qualified advice for many years of experience in the industry. So then they can focus on maybe some staff issues, some welfare issues, along with other aspects of the golf club. So that's so Greg is obviously still associated with Ealing, but he's not there a full time, is he? He's on the road.
No, because but that's basically how it started. And then the next thing, I think what happened is we he's a good player. We've got our own view on Ealing, and there's a lot of clubs like Ealing around. They're London-based clay courses, landlocked because of the land is so prime value. And they're probably all 100 years old, and they all could do at the time a lot of modernizing, and everyone's pitching for business, and we had this idea because we'd been a successful playing club as amateurs. We'd been English champion 4 times and European champions twice for a little club with hardly any practice facility or one putting green, 89 acres. It was quite a remarkable achievement, to be honest, but that's because we all were growing up at the same sort of time. And we also had feeder clubs coming in. The public courses nearby were feeder clubs, and once we were successful, they were coming in. And one of the first things we said was, can we get fast greens, because it seemed the right thing at the time, and we're fairly flat, so that was an easy thing. And Greg said, yep, we can do that. And the other thing, purely by chance, was that we had a new course director. So we have a directors run the club, and normally they form a committee, and the new course director came down and sort of said, I'm now the course director, what do we do? And I virtually said, just as a joke, well, you don't do anything. Greg and I do everything, and when we need the money in the budget, we come and tell you. And he went, fine, that sounds great. And it was a couple of years before they realized that wasn't quite the way to do it, but because it gave us that scope of a couple of years. I mean, because you couldn't take out any tree or a conifer or anything before you go through a committee, and there'll always be someone who says, "Oh, well, I played with Bert, and he thinks it's a great tree, and it's been there." And fortunately, we have a lot of we have a lot of old pictures of Harry Colt course and how it looked, and so we were able to get on with a few things for a couple of years, and because it was fairly successful, certainly on Greg's end, how he got the course in the position it was. They thought, well, why change it? And so for best part of 15 years now, it's pretty much four people who make the decisions on the course. Course director, myself as the director of golf, Wes the head greenkeeper, and Greg. And as a consequence, we've enjoyed really top class conditions for quite a number of years.
Wow. And do you find that, like you say, you managed to almost by chance or by accident, keep that small amount of people? So you say you weren't dealing with a committee of 15 people to remove a tree or something. That's obviously worked.
Yeah.
And I think we all know, I mean, I've held a couple of sort of mid-management positions in golf, course I don't at the moment, but I've sat on cricket club committees in the past, and I just remember the maybe debates about tedious things, new crockery. The cricket club would be, you'd end up having 3 meetings before you actually signed off on spending 15 to 25 pounds. It's a model that's obviously worked with you guys, perhaps limiting that sort of interaction or input, should I say, has certainly worked. If I so that relationship you shared with Greg was a wonderful one, and that you still do. You say he's still sort of a big part of Ealing, but from maybe from more of a backseat perspective now. And now Wes is the current head greenkeeper. Similar relationship, or is it one that's developing?
I think very similar. I think Greg he incredibly thorough. He was a very good player, so a lot of the playing side, I didn't need to sort of say too much. Wes is less so, but still a decent player. But my role is purely to, I see it from a playing point of view. The great thing about golf is you're trying to set up the course, and then tees, positionals, so forward tees, back tees, whatever, and handicap seems to take care of everything else. Now, obviously at times when we got the greens really fast, I mean, they were 12 at some point. They are fast. Members at first thought, oh my God, this is ridiculous, but they love them now. And in fact, when they're not running really quick, they come in and say, well, what's happened to the greens? But very similar to Wes, because as I say, I think now he's taken over the more day-to-day running. He has his own identity, his own mark. He wants to leave that. I totally respect that, because I haven't got all the ideas. I know how I think a course or how I want it to look in terms of a design or how I think it should play. But obviously, where I don't have the knowledge is they've got to make it work. So if I make a change and, say, right, I want this bit shaved, they then come, shave the greens or whatever it is, the collars, the surrounds. I love these runoff areas that we've sort of introduced. But obviously that from a greenkeeping point of view, that takes more time. The machine that cuts it might be more labor intensive, as it were. And they've got to come back to me and say, well, look, this is an issue where we might have a problem. And then it might be my job to go and push that part for the person making the decision if we need, a little bit more money or whatever. And we that's how we tend to do it. And I think, as I say, I think it's been successful. I tell you why I think it's been successful, because a lot of clubs, as you say, are using Greg. He has the same sort of philosophy in all the clubs, make it as good as you possibly can. and clubs are caught up. Middlesex at times were very much a poor relation in the golf scene. No one would go to Middlesex for a golfing holiday like they would down to sort of Royal St George's, apart from see the sights of London. But our courses now within Middlesex are improving all the time, and I think that's a great thing. You're raising the standard, and everyone looks at that and they go, "Oh my God, we've got to, what's Ealing's secret? Well, it's not that difficult. Why don't we try do things like that?" And that's good. That's for the good of the game, completely, in my view.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like one of the key aspects of that is, it's just from what you've talked about for the last few minutes there, Ricky, very open lines of communication. It seems like you're all very honest with each other. And like you say, you might approach Wes and suggest you might want to sort of open some run-offs, run the aprons off somewhere else. And then Wes might counter that with the fact that, Ricky, that's all very well at holes 1, 2, and 3, but when we get to 5 and 6, we're going to have some issues. We've got some undulations or something, or if we, it's going to come with potential extra costs or man hours. But if you're open and honest with each other, Wes then comes back to you, then you can go where you need to go and suggest that it might be, if we're going to open these aprons up, the top dressing budget is going to increase, the fertilizer budget is going to increase, not astronomically, but the money's got to come from somewhere, isn't it? And, And Wes doesn't want, he can't magic £3,000 or £4,000 out from somewhere else. So, but it sounds to me like you guys are very, like I say, those clear lines of communication are what allows it to run as smooth as it appears to do so. Yeah,
well, I like any members club, the budgets are tight, and I always think that the money, we're a golf club, and my argument or my discussions with most clubs, Ealing no different, is that, if you look at the club, if you take away the golf course, it's not a social club. It's a brilliant social club, but, for a very long time, clubs have spent a lot of money on their clubhouse, making, the dining room look better, and everything like that. And I don't think they've sort of like spent enough on the course, because you only have to look at the recent weather. When the sun was out, everyone was there. I mean, we're a busy club, and the moment it's cold or the course is struggling because we sit on wet clay, and it might only have 9 holes open, or there's a trolley ban or anything, no one's there. And and there's a number of reasons. There are drink driving, that rightly so. And time, golf has got very expensive as well, especially with equipment. And so, as a philosophy with Ealing, we want to be, we try to be so adaptable. We change the routing, we just do it. Yes, England Golf will say, "Oh, you can't have a qualifying because we haven't marked the course down, or you're under judged." But I don't care. I'd rather, they want to go out and play golf. I'll change the routine. I'll make it fun as possible. Make it challenging, and make it different. We got the Masters come up. We're gonna make the greens as fast as the Masters and try put some ridiculous pins in, just to have a bit of fun.
And why not?
It's a game. No one's doing it for their living in Ealing. So I can tell you, it's less fun when it's for your living, but it's still fun. It's still fun to do. I could have been a printer for 30 years or a golfer for 30 years. My God, I'm glad I chose this. So that's pretty much how we try to do it. And of course, the relationship I have with Wes and Greg, yes, at times it's fiery. The toys are thrown out, and there's a lot of kicking of trees and things like that, because I can't get my own way. So I sulk, and ultimately though, it comes down to those guys, because it's very easy for me to say, "Oh, put a bunker in there," and if it doesn't go, or it doesn't go in there, no one really cares. But if they do something wrong, everyone's on their case, and that's the one thing I hope, which obviously the relationship which you see on Twitter is a healthy one, because as I said, when Greg was first in there, he was cutting at 2 mil when everyone says you can't cut at 2 mil, you lose the greens.
Yeah.
But the people who were saying you're going to lose the greens, they were like accountants and solicitors, and I would say, I'm very sarcastic, and I would go, oh, well, can you give us a date so I can put it in the diary and I won't have any members' days or societies on that day? And the truth is, I found it really irritating, even within the industry, that people was criticising or say this is going to happen, and they hadn't really come down to see, the greens, and they would say, oh, it's, you won't sustain it. And the other thing is, I thought they were within the industry. I thought it was damn right rude and horrible and really poor, because they were being technical and say, well, this, you might need to have this and this, that. And I said, look, as a golfer, we don't even care what colour they are. All we want to know is when I hit a good shot from a good fairway, and I've hit it with like a 6-iron, and I haven't got a distance ball, so therefore it's not going to run on. I'm going to hold the green because I've hit it well, and then when I hit a putt, it's going to hold its line, and it's at a lovely pace. And that's all we wanted, and every one of our members loved it. Whereas the other side of it, the industry was basically saying, you can't do it like that. And I think he shook it up. And I think everyone's benefited from it as well. So I maintain that healthy relationship with the greenkeepers, because two other things. Sorry, I'm going on, but
that's fine.
You work incredibly hard. I mean, pros. Even when I was playing on tour, it's a miserable life, really. You go away on a Tuesday, you're in a hotel, you play golf. It's brilliant to play, but in between that, it's not very good. It's very unsociable. You have a laugh with your friends. You come home. If you miss the cut, the wife's sending you out because you got to pay the bills for next time. You're practicing, and if you make the cut, you're not home till Monday, and she gives you hammer in because the kids haven't. You haven't seen it anyway. Yeah. So and greenkeeping's the same. You're up at the crack of the dawn. Yes, you might leave at 4 o'clock or whatever, but you're in all sorts of hours, and it doesn't matter. And this is the bit that I see them out there. It doesn't matter if it's pouring down.
We don't mind bad language.
You are still setting that course up as though it's the most important tournament in the country. And I admire that. And that's what we try to do at Ealing. I don't care if it's a rabbits competition or we're having TP Tour there. Wes and Greg, pretty much, yes, there's downsides. Of course there is. There's times when they don't change the pins. There's times when the fairways might not get cut. But when it's right in the season, on a Monday, that course is just as good as it is on a Sunday. And that was never the case when I came in. When we used to have a women's eclectic that they play on a Wednesday and they also play on the Sunday. And the first thing someone said to me as director of golf was, they've changed the pins. And I said, well, yeah, it's Wednesday or Sunday, but we've got the eclectic and pins must be in the same spot. And I'm saying, you are joking. Well, you better change the dates because that's never happening again. And that's what club life was about. Yeah. But everyone's embraced it now, and they're so supportive. And when members are supportive, and they understand, and they understand there are issues with being on clay and drainage and things like that. But when they're supportive, then obviously the job's a lot more, and that goes for my job as well. It's a lot more easier. I mean, it's funny. We're having a program at the moment where we're taking down a few trees, and that can be a real controversial move. We had a lot of elms and oaks, and we didn't have a lot of trees on the course, but we had these magnificent big trees. And of course, not soon after I joined, it would have been maybe around the 80s, Dutch elm disease caused us to lose a lot. And where we used to have trees going across the course, the greenkeeper at the time and the board at the time said, look, we've got to replace it with poplars, quick growing, conifers, shielding. you know, they went down the fairway parallel rather than across, where we, you know, if you hit it right, you might be you might be in the rough, but you had to maneuver one through this gap in the trees. And you know, at this precise moment in time, 40 years later or 30 years later, those trees, you know, are causing a little bit of aggravation, especially the conifers. Nothing grows, and you know, and poplars are the ugliest in my view ever. And you know, and you know, we've had a recent thing, and and for my thing, I say, look, there's 3 reasons you probably would look at taking out a tree. 1 is safety. If it's falling over, you have to take it out. 2 is, you know, we play off turf, so if it's damaging the turf with roots or because of the shading, surely then you should consider taking it out. And I said the 3rd reason is you're trying to undo what committees did 40 years ago when they didn't have a clue what they were doing, and they planted all these trees. And now 40 years later, they're 10 times the size, and you can't play the hole how it's supposed to be played. So, and it seems to work, you know, it seems to work.
So do you find in your position, Ricky, as director of golf, do you find yourself working in a position where you have to sort of act as potentially a barrier between the membership and the greenkeepers, but also a facilitator, in the sense that you have a certain amount of responsibility to make the members aware of what's going on? For example, you've just mentioned trees, so maybe as the members come through the pro shop, you know, that they are aware that the trees at the back of the 5th, let's say, I don't know, Ealing, but so you give them a little heads up and are able to, it sounds to me that you're very knowledgeable, you're able to explain why, you know, you'll see when you're out there, you'll see the guys working, these trees are coming out. And I think the key is because that next sentence, it's not just, you'll see the guys out there, they're taking the trees out, because then that just probably they leave the pro shop, head to the golf course with questions still in their head. If you're able to, which it sounds like you do, able to just give them that little bit more information, and this is why, then they go out there and they're not playing that first 4 holes waiting to kick off about the 5th.
I think we've always communicated to the members. You know, if I don't know something, and there's a lot I don't know, you know, and someone, because I'm a good player or whatever, they would say, you know, why, look, what's wrong with that tree there? And I go, well, I haven't got a clue, but I will find out for you. You know, and I think that communication helps a great deal. And I would say I'm a bit of both. I also would be a member as well. I am a member of Ealing, but I'd also say, look, you know, this wasn't right. And I would try to do it away from anyone else hearing that, because I'm definitely more on the side of the green stuff, but I'm also on the member side, because they pay a lot of money and they want that. And as long as we give the greenkeepers the tools and the time and the you know, the budget to do it, I'm confident with the team that we're going to do it. And I'm only too pleased to help in the things that, you know, if it's a divoting evening, I get a divoting evening, and I would be very plain as that we can all do divoting, because it's an unskilled work. We want our staff to do the skill work, so we can do, you know, all the pitch marks and yeah, I mean, the etiquette at the moment in golf maintenance is poor. But I think that's a lot to do with, you can't, you know, the interviewing way of getting people into golf has changed massively. Before, it was ridiculous. They asked me what school I went to, you know, not Ealing, but another club. As if that mattered, you know, for God's sake, you know, surely how I play and everything else mattered. But that's obviously changed, but to a degree. And I don't think telly helps as well, because you see a pro hitting a divot, you never see him picking it up, and the camera's following him, and you don't really see the caddy picking it up because he won't bother, but there's probably someone behind him, you know, putting it in. And I think it would do a bad thing to just show on telly that, you know, I'm a pro, I put back divots. Of course I do. So, you know, I don't think they're bad things to do. You see them repair pitch marks a lot of the time. But I think it's got, so, I just think it's got a little bit out of hand. And so therefore, you're always trying to put back dipsets. So Wes would normally WhatsApp me or say, look, we've got a problem with the fifth. It would, he knows that he's got to send me a message before 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because then I can send it out on a start sheet email to everyone playing, say, be aware there's something going on.
Yeah.
And that works fine.
Quite simple, really, but as long
simple.
as long as that communication between you and Wes is clear and within the necessary time frame, no problems. Or hopefully no problems.
And of course there's times when someone, one of the green staff might have still be cutting a hole at the wrong time. But that happens. It's a work in progress. It's a living thing. And as I say, I think if you just hold your hands up and you say, we got that wrong, I think members accept it. If you try to fudge it and try sort of like think of other things, I think then it becomes an issue.
Yeah, again, that open line of communication that we're talking about, as long as that's there with the membership in an honest capacity, like you say, mistakes are made. The green, it could be something as simple as a greenkeeper has an accidental lie-in, or he has a breakdown, and where he would normally have cut the front nine, he may only be on the fourth green. But again, as long as people are aware when they head out to play, then damage is limited. That's fantastic. I mean, we could stop the podcast now. Again, I think everyone would be far better informed, and I'm sure there'd be a few head greenkeepers who'd be rather envious of yours and Wes's relationship. I just want to touch on a couple of other subjects. Social media. It's if my co-host, he's not here with us today, Phil, he has a love-hate relationship with social media. I sort of bumped into you on social media. Your Twitter account, very informative, but also very complimentary of the green stuff. Not always, not that you're negative, but you don't always mention the green stuff. But I've seen you out there sort of recording club championship morning, mowers in the background. You might be having a little putt on the part of the green, and you always it is nice to see the fact that you mentioned the green stuff. Is that a conscious effort, or is that just Ricky, the nice guy?
No, I'm not a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. It is, when the course, I mean, we're just starting. Look, everyone knows that the sun's come out for a week, and everyone can't understand why all the grass is growing lush and you're cutting 3 times a day. It's because the ground conditions aren't warming up yet. You've still got the earth to warm up, and of course it's gone cold again. But when we get that season, and hopefully it won't be too long now, the course is immaculate, and it is really, really good, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me to play on those greens and to just compliment them, because they are that good. And I wouldn't. I've played other places, of course I have, and there are some amazing courses and amazing greens. I was down at Deal not that long ago, and I love St Paul's. I love St George's. St George's is one. When they say the Americans don't like the Open, I mean, what are they on about? It's a brilliant golf course.
There's another podcast.
So great, it's such a brilliant golf course, and I'm also a huge fan of St Paul's. I very nearly joined there when I was at my best as an amateur, because most of the amateur championships were links courses, and that was probably the closest. And let's be fair, St George's would have asked me what school I went to, and if it wasn't the correct one, I would be out. Whereas Deal was a little bit different to that.
Deal was where I did my apprenticeship, actually.
Brilliant. And Andrew Reynolds is a good friend, and I just love their whole attitude. They want to get the Open there now, whether they do, but they're always pushing. St George's don't have to try too hard to get the Open, because you need somewhere in the south. It's got all the facilities there. Now they've got that bypass. It came back and it's been successful. But Deal pushes and they go, why can't? And I love that. I love golf clubs really trying to be the best they can. Never rest on your laurels. I never have. When I go out hitting balls, I want to be as good as I possibly can at 62. I know I'm shit now, but I wish I try my hardest. And that's the same as us. And I think that, that's what we do. We try to get the greens as good as possible. And as a consequence, I've seen our relatively flat greens become vicious at times. And sometimes with the cut runoff areas. And, yes, people could argue that you make it a bit too difficult for the high handicap. But I disagree with that, because I think now, if you look in America, you've got all that rough around the greens, and really it's a one-shot pony. If you're no good with your lob wedge, you can't play them. But you could putt, you could chip, you could play a chip and run. And so we always tried to balance it. And as I say, I also went and played Princes, and the job that the McGurks are doing there, with their nines and the improvements they're making, it's brilliant. But condition-wise, Ealing's greens are phenomenal. And honestly, it's not a conscious effort at all. I just go out there. I know how hard the guys work. So I'm always, I wasn't a good player through talent. I grafted, and I love practicing. And that was one of my benefits, that I love practicing. And so I see the same, that they're working hard to get the course good. And why, it's our way of otherwise you can put it on your website, but let's be fair, you're never going to put a bad picture on your website, or say, at times we're a bit muddy or whatever. So it's my way of showing, and at times it comes across really good, because you can see the pace of them, or you can see, how good the condition of the golf course is in. And I'm just trying to make it sound a little bit more, exciting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not much of a golfer myself, but watching a few of your videos, I've certainly been tempted to head up the motorway and give Ealing a go. I will do one day. I want to just one final point, Ricky, before I let you get on with your evening. I just wanted to, obviously, we've the post-COVID golf boom, as it's been described. You've said Ealing is a busy golf club generally. Busy, I'm sure busier now. How has that affected you guys, and your role as director of golf, and Wes as head greenkeeper and with his staff? How has this increase? How have you had to make a conscious decision about limiting golf, in a sense, because we all know we can come in as early as we can as greenkeepers, but we still need a certain amount of time to get work done. How has Ealing coped with the boom?
Well, like a lot of clubs, our membership is full, but we control it a little bit, because it gives the greenkeepers a chance. So our first tee time is 7:30. We only have a one tee start.
There's a little love that.
Yeah, he loves that. Yeah, now and again we have a 2T, just to keep him on his toes.
Yeah.
But that's because we're in a residential area, and we always, there's one area which can get a bit noisy, and we've had a few complaints. But I think we've always been like that. And you know what? In the summer we just go later. That's all. We just, because the course is already set up. Greg, Wes, they keep ahead of the field, so it's not, someone's cutting the 12th because they just stay ahead of the field. And that really, members have really appreciated that, because they've gone to other clubs and they've seen that doesn't always work like that. And so we're ahead of the game. They start early, they're ahead of the game. So you hardly see a greenkeeper if you plan. We're very busy. I think, before, like anything, being a director of a golf club is really it's not a thankful task. You're getting hammered if the course is bad, or the catering's no good, or whatever it might be. And of course, if it's brilliant, you're down there buying drinks and it's all you're doing. And I think what happened is we had the directors who did a great job, but no one was coming forward to try, to change those things. And so we were having the same directors up for re-election, which was fine, absolutely fine. But then the boom came, and the boom came with the pandemic, because it gave us all a chance, me included, to sit down for 3-4 weeks. For me, it was like retiring, and I was so bored. But then I'd start doing ridiculous things in the garden, and I just tried to do different things and challenges. And then, it gave you a chance to get better at social media, better on Instagram. I was looking at all the booking things that we could use, because when we reopened, we were already using a booking system, but then everyone was using a booking system, looking at how your website could change your way, and then and now, we've got more directors and places, or more people putting up, so we're getting more and more people with new ideas. We've got a new GM coming in. He's a golfer, DJ Russell's son. Looking forward to working with him, because because I'm out of all the main office, I'm the golfer, but Dave, Chris Russell's a good player, played for England, and so to throw my ideas, also him to have some ideas, I think we're going to work great and make it even better, rather than just Stateford medal, some better, but just change. And I think we've got to watch, and I hate saying it, but I think we've got to watch the standard of play. Because there's a lot of new blood coming in. Members expect us to, only sort of not allow, but the standard should be more, not that you only can hit it 50 yards, but how you conduct yourself around the golf course, rate the bunkers, repair your pitch marks, put your divots back, get on with it, sort of thing, rather than the standard of, they're not hitting it far enough. So, I think we're very forward thinking. I've got 2 daughters, we've embraced the WHS. We have all our competitions are gender neutral, all of them. Why? Well, we have 2 men's. Ladies always have about 50 events, I'm sure. Well, possibly not so much at Rolls and Jordan.
We have a few now.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, it's all. I knew Linda Bayman. I knew well, and I always laughed.
She still walks her dogs every morning.
Brilliant. I know, fantastic. Anyway, sorry, went off subject, but for me, it's the greatest game to play when people aren't of the same standard, and you just got to embrace that. So as I say, during lockdown, I looked at all our major tournaments, and instead of, and I'm saying, do we think that, you have to play a handicap competition off the white tees? Because now we got the WHS, it can do this adjustment, and everyone can play off any other tee. For instance, if I play in a pro-am, I'm playing off a pro's tee, and the amateurs are playing off an amateur tee. So it obviously works, and everyone on the sort of committee, which I handpicked, so they all say yes anyway. But what I'm saying is, everyone said great idea, and I said, well, if that's the case, women have got to play as well, because they're full members of this golf club. And it's been the right thing by miles to do that. And as I say, it's how a golf club should operate. If it's an equal golf club and you're paying the same fees, then the fact you have a great handicapper system and you have 3 choices of tees, just go and play it and enjoy yourself. That's you've been working all week. Go and enjoy yourself. We're worried about the course condition. We're worried about the competition setup. Go and play. If you can't reach the fairway, which is 130 yards off the first, why are you playing off the white tee? I understood it before, because everything used to be off the white tee, but now we can do it off the red tee or the yellow tee, and we're changing the colouring, because no men want to go off the red tee because they think it's a women's tee, even though it's been anybody's tee for the last 2 years. So you're just trying to change that thing. And again, you talk about, I give information about trees. When someone says, I can't understand it, I said, look, if I went and played Bethpage Black, which is 7,700 yards, with Dustin Johnson, and he said to me, right, come on, Rich, we'll have a scratch match off the back tees, I'd look at him and go, Are you joking? I mean, but we'd find a way of, by having a handicap, or, because let's be fair, 7,700 yards off the back, I hit it about 260 now, right? So he's going to give me 50, 60 yards. He's hitting an 8-iron into the hardest green position, pin places in the world. I'm going in with 3-wood. I ain't getting it near there. It's a no contest. But if there was a way that, of course, Open Championship, scratch events, absolutely, one tee, no matter what standard, I get that. But when it's a handicap, or you can bring in other things, and suddenly I'm playing off a tee where I'm hitting a drive 8-iron and he's 60, 70, 80 yards back and doing the same thing, we can have a game. And that's how I try to explain it to when, members are playing off different tees. I said, the handicaps will make an adjustment, and, our greens are firm. I'm going to have a really nasty pin on 4 because I want to. And, if you're going in with 3-wood, you ain't going to get near it. But if you're going in with 8-iron because you're playing off a forward tee or you're playing off a course, then brilliant. And I quite like what they've done in America, where they're doing less on, you play off 28, therefore you should play off the green tee, whatever. Well, I know plenty of 28 handicappers who hit it miles, but they just can't chip. But what they're doing now is they're saying, look, however far you hit a 5-iron, if you times it by 36, that's pretty much the length of course you should be playing. So when I did that, I sort of lied about how far I hit a 5-iron, because you have to, I can't
Give
say
yourself a chance.
I went 180. No, I went the other way, 180.
Oh, right.
Because it looks better at dinner parties. But if I did that, it's a 6,600 yard golf course, and that's probably about right. That's probably about right. And if Dustin Johnson did it, it's probably 7.3. And if my old friend, the president, did it, it's probably 4,800.
Yeah.
What is wrong with that? It's the greatest game, because if you play against Federer at tennis, it doesn't matter what start it gives you, it's over.
Yeah.
And I think that's what golf has to embrace. And I think golf unions are slow to do that. They because they're committee run, and we all know where the committees have come from, clubs, and oh no, we always do this or we always do that. But they're getting there, and I'm pleased that Middlesex are really forward thinking in that way, and having a lot of mixed events, not mixed as in mixed foursomes, but just, we've got the county championships there, and the women and the men should all be playing at the same time. And if you get a really good woman, why can't she win the county championship? Because it means she's the best player in the county. Now, if it's a scratch event, it's 1 tee, I get that. But that's where I think the pandemic gave us a chance to look at ourselves and our members and the people we want in, or the club we're trying to promote. As I like to use a modern club with some traditional values, and those values are normally on the course etiquette side. Put your things back, don't wheel your trolley over the green, and things like that. But the rest of it, is my mother always made sure I had a clean shirt, clean underpants, clean socks every morning. And, I played a lot in France, and they all wear jeans, but they all look immaculate, and someone would say, you can't wear those jeans because they're only, they're probably 130-pound jeans. They look immaculate. You can't wear them. And then they go and give them an old dirty pair of waterproof trousers, and suddenly that looks a lot better. It doesn't make sense. So, that's I think what we try to do.
That fantastically put, Ricky. And I think I could listen to you for hours. We could probably go on for a little bit longer, but we've been going for about an hour now. So I'll wrap it up. I just want to thank you for coming on, really, Ricky.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Like I say, I hit you up out of the blue, just dropped you a DM, and you were very kind enough to come on. And it's been absolutely wonderful listening to you to answer my questions, but expanding on them sort of made my job a bit easier, really, because I didn't really have to ask too many questions around my initial points, which is always helps and may go to make me look a bit better. but it was just wonderful. And it sounds like Ealing is progressive. And like you say, I think a lot of people looked at were able to take some time away during the pandemic, or during the lockdown, should I say. And those clubs that have come back with, these ideas, like you just mentioned, something as simple as a booking system, but even an updated booking system, the clubs that have come back and opened their eyes to modern ways of doing things are the clubs that will now be able to deal with the huge amount of people who want to get either back into golf, or get into golf to start in golf, or just have maybe come to the realization, with the time at home, that they just want to play more golf. They might take that odd afternoon off and have a game of golf, and clubs like Ealing. So I will put the link to the club's website, but anyone watching this, go and see Ricky, if you're ever down that neck of the woods. I'd just like to thank everyone for listening or watching to another episode of Henry Weston's Old Mate the podcast. Don't forget to drop us a like, rate, review, share us amongst your friends. Ricky Willison, thank you so much for being a guest. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Cheers.